Good morning, class. Today's lesson is about passive voice. So, what do you know about passive voice? So, we use it when we focus on the action, not the doer. Okay? So, here is an example. My bike was stolen. So, did we mention here who is or who stole the bike? No, but rather here the focus is on the action itself, the fact that the bike was stolen. In the example above, the focus is on the fact that my bike was stolen. I don't know, however, who did it. So let's look at this example too. A mistake was made. In this case, I focus on the fact that a mistake was made too, but I don't blame anyone for doing it. So you see here in the passive voice, what you have to bear in your mind that the focus is on the action rather than who do the action. Okay, who does the action. So here is the form of the passive, how we form the passive voice. It's a subject plus verb to be plus past participle. Here is an example. A letter was written. So we move here to talk about some changes when we take a sentence from the active voice to the passive one. For example, let's say a letter or Emily wrote a letter. This is an active voice. We know that Emily is the subject, wrote a verb, a letter, object. But if we turn it into a passive voice, we would say that a letter have been written or was written by Emily. So you see here how we changed the same thing here. We have some notes to talk about. The object of the active sentence becomes the subject of the passive sentence. So as I told you, for example, a letter is an object. When we turn it into a passive, it will be the subject. The finite form of the verb is changed to be plus past participle. Then the subject of the active sentence becomes the object of the passive sentence, or sometimes is dropped. Okay, we go back to the same sentence. Emily wrote a letter or writes a letter. This is the active. When we turn it into passive, a letter was written. We can say a letter was written by Emily, or a letter was written, and that's all. So here we can drop it out. So here are some examples of the passive. I have the tense, subject, verb, object. Look at the changes. Simple present tense. So what we have in the active sentence, Rita writes a letter. This is the active. When we turn it into passive, a letter is written by Rita. You see here the object in the active sentence becomes the subject in the passive one. And you see here Rita, which is the subject in the active voice, becomes the object in the passive one. So here is the example that shows you how are the passive and the active changing. So you have here the simple past, of course, active, Rita wrote a letter. The passive, a letter was written by Rita. The present perfect, Rita has written a letter has been written by Rita. The future, Rita will write a letter will be written by Rita. So all what you have to do is that you have to focus on the tense. You identify the subject, you identify the object, then the other things are very easy. So all what you bear in mind how we can change from active into passive. Okay, here is another thing. Sometimes in passive sentences we need two objects. That is, we need a direct one and an indirect one. Okay, rewriting an active sentence with two objects in passive voice means that one of the two objects becomes the subject, the other one remains an object. Which object to transform into a subject depends on what you want to put focus on. So here is the same thing. We said that in the passive voice we focus of course on the action, not the doer. And when you have here two objects, which one you are going to focus on is the one which will be the first. So here you have examples. Rita wrote a letter to me. Okay, so a letter is the thing that we are going to focus on. The passive voice, a letter was written to me by Rita. Okay, so I focused here that the letter is written to me. The passive, I was written a letter by Emily. You see here how we change object 1 and 2 depending on what you want to focus on. So, hope that the changes of the passive and the active were clear for you. So you can go back and you check it again, and you can check your class books on page 91. Okay, I provided you with a task here. Change the active sentences below into passive sentences. Write no change if you think that the sentence cannot be changed. You know that sometimes we cannot change sentences from active to passive. It's impossible. So all what you have here is that you will focus on these sentences and you try to turn them into passive ones. She writes a letter, they go to school every day, he doesn't paint the wall, you should do your homework. Don't talk so loudly, they are painting their house, we have drunk milk tea. I'm not going to work today. He has been teaching English for 10 years. So here you have 9 sentences. You read them carefully. You identify the object, the subject, the verb, the tense. Then the change will be easy. Thank you for your attention. Hope that the lesson was clear. Have a nice day.